All right, let's talk about the Shure SM7B. This is my podcast microphone of choice, and it's kind of a little, maybe not as controversial as I'm gonna make it out to be, but like a lot of people say they don't like it and that it sounds muddy and all that stuff. And obviously it kind of depends on your voice. If you have like a higher pitch voice or a baritone voice like me, it's fine. You might need to EQ some of the high end a little bit and it'll sound fine, like it's solid. It's a dynamic mic, so it's meant to be, not capture as much detail and sound, otherwise there's gonna be a lot of noise when you combine multiple audio sources. Because most of the time you're talking with another person when it comes to like a podcast, right? So I have two of these things, the other one's in my bag. And a funny story actually with these Shure SM7Bs, when they were first delivered to me, I don't know why, but they were delivered to the wrong address both times. And that's only ever happened with the Shure SM7B. And I don't know if there's like a glitch in the system when it comes to ordering from B&H and Shure SM7Bs that somehow make people send it to the wrong address, but that is what happened with both of them. And I freaked out the first time because I was just like, holy shit, they say delivered and it's not here. And I'm just like asking all my neighbors and none of them have it. So they delivered it to like someone else in the neighborhood that wasn't even a neighbor or that wasn't like nearby. So I was like, what? How did that even happen? But anyways, aside from that, it's been a great experience overall with the Shure SM7B. I actually covered it up here because I don't like there's some options here to change, but I'm just like, I leave it in the default and then screw these things in because it just looks so much cleaner that way. But yeah, for me, I personally like it a lot. I feel like I don't really mind the slight, I wouldn't necessarily call it muddiness. It's just not as detailed, I guess, compared to like a condenser microphone, like the Audio-Technica AT4040 that I have. So I don't use this for voiceovers. I use this for, like I said, podcast stuff. And I have it connected to the Apollo Twin Duo right there. And most of the time though, it is connected to the Zoom F6 that I have. But I also wanted to talk about dynamic mics in general because I've had the chance to use quite a lot of them at certain points. So this was, I think, my third one. The first one that I ever used was the Heel PR40. The Heel PR40, not the best in my opinion. It sounded muddier and it sounded like something it just didn't sound good. It didn't sound good in the voice, in my opinion, like out of the box. Again, you can EQ things, you can edit things to make it sound better, but out of the box, the Heel PR40 just sounded really muddy to my ears. I also got I forgot what it was called. It was like the Rode Procaster. I think it was called Rode Procaster. Yes, pretty sure that's what it was called. It also didn't quite have a sound that I liked. It just, something felt missing. So did not end up using that microphone. And I also got the Shure SM57 at a certain point. I think that's what it's called. And that one's more like an instrument mic, but we tried to use it as a podcast mic and that didn't go super well. A lot of people actually said that they liked the sound of that microphone with their voice. Again, different voice, different audio sort of chain, you're gonna produce different results and people have subjective taste in terms of like how something sounds as well. So that's another thing to think about. But for me, after using that microphone with my friends for the podcast stuff, there's like 5 of us at a certain point. So I was just like, the pickup pattern of this microphone is too much. It picks up other people way too much. So it's like causing some phasing and it's very annoying to deal with compared to the Shure SM7B or other dynamic microphones. Honestly, like most of the other ones, it doesn't pick up other people as much. But the technique for that is to get your mouth as close to the microphone as you can. So the phasing issues aren't as big of a deal, but they will still be there, unfortunately. Like you'll still notice a difference if you were like completely mute one mic versus leaving it there, because you'll still hear that the other person is talking if you're in the same room. So yeah, that was a problem that I had like a big headache with actually back when we did the podcast stuff. It was just so annoying to deal with, but now I don't care. I kind of feel like my standards for audio quality has dropped actually when it comes to YouTube stuff. When it comes to professional stuff, of course, you gotta make sure that it sounds really good. But when it comes to like just a podcast for fun or YouTube, I'm just like, yeah, as long as it sounds good and you can hear what that person is saying, like, and levels are balanced and stuff like that. To me, those are like the standard things. I don't consider that like super high quality. Those are like standard things. If it's worse than that, then yeah, it's probably a problem because the person's listening experience has now dropped. But if it's just like small phasing issues that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise unless like you do a A/B comparison, then it's fine. So I think that's pretty much it. Those are all the dynamic mics that I've ever used, and I've sold basically all of them, so they're gone. And I only have the Shure SM7B as my main dynamic microphone now, 2 of them. Actually, wait, I also got a chance to use the Shure MV7. That microphone is currently with my friend in Japan, and technically it's still mine, but yeah, I should probably go recover it at some point. But I don't really care about the MV7. To me, it doesn't sound as good as the SM7B. Like there's something about it that's just like slightly less sounding good. That sounded terrible, but it just doesn't sound as good in my opinion. And like something is missing about it. But maybe the newer MV7, because I know they upgraded it sometime this year or last year. And maybe the newer one is probably better. And they also upgraded the Shure SM7B. They gave it like a slightly new name, Plus or something, where you don't need to have like a good audio interface, because usually you need a strong audio interface that has like enough gain to actually, yeah, you just have to give it enough gain. And the Zoom F6 as well as the Apollo Twin do have that. Otherwise you need like something called like a cloud lifter or something that boosts the gain basically. So to make the signal cleaner and everything. But yeah, that's just something to note. If you are interested in the SM7B, you will need that. Otherwise you'll maybe have some issues. I'm not sure. I've never actually had an issue with it because I've always used things that have enough gain. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. This time for sure, I've mentioned every single microphone that I've ever used when it comes to dynamic microphones. Yeah, if you're ever doing a podcast, don't use a condenser microphone. Don't use the Blue Yeti mic, don't use Audio-Technica AT4040, and I'm assuming you have like an extra person with you. Because if you use those microphones, you're gonna come across like major phasing issues, unless you're like passing the microphone back and forth. So if you have like 2 Blue Yeti mics or 2 Audio-Technica AT4040s, yeah, phasing is gonna be a huge annoyance. I've dealt with that before. Okay, I think that's it. Let me know your experiences with microphones, what you think about the dynamic mics, whether or not you think I'm wrong in terms of what I talked about for the other microphones as well as the Shure SM7B. I'm happy to talk about it and like listen to other people's opinions, because this is obviously just my opinion with the Shure SM7B, and they would go on the Rode PSA 1s right here, both of them. Actually, I made a recent episode, a podcast episode with my friend, so you guys can check it out. That's how I use it. We were talking about business school and stuff.